right, we got a good one today. We're talking about the Giant Revolt X. This is a brand new bike from Giant, a variant of the Giant Revolt. It is a spicy, more playful version of the Revolt. We are going to rate it across 5 different categories. So we're going to rate it across speed, handling, comfort, versatility, and value. And the way that we're going to do that is by taking 100 points and distributing them across all 5 of those categories. You've got a ton of experience on the normal Revolt, so I think this should be pretty fun to see how this varies from your everyday standard go-to race bike. You ready to get going?
Yes.
Cool. Let's start with speed. So for speed, 20 points. It's a pretty high rating. And again, like, you've got a lot of experience riding the standard Revolt. So what stands out about this bike and how fast it is?
Yeah, so this bike, it felt very fast downhill. So that was the first thing that came to mind when thinking about speed. On the flats, since I'm riding the version that you can't lock out the front, it tends to go a little bit up and down when you start to put power in, so it's less reactive than the Revolt that I normally race and ride on. The Revolt that I ride on, which is quite a bit stiffer, is nearly as fast as my road bike, especially with slick tires on there. On the road, it's super responsive. You can put down quite a bit of power and feel like you're flying.
Many thousands of watts.
Yeah, sometimes more. Yeah, and this one is, while it does feel fast and it is really nice, there were some washboards today that I was like, oh yeah, I'm glad I have that extra suspension.
Watching everybody else get bounced around,
yeah,
and you're just soaking everything up.
Going forward. Yeah, it does feel slower just on a flat out sprint. I'm going up and down more than forward. So yeah.
But I noticed you were waiting at the bottom of all of the hills for everyone, so
sure
it does still have a lot of speed in different places. All right, so handling, I feel like with speed you actually start to talk a little bit about some of the handling characteristics. Like, yeah, it's fast, it does have good pedal transfer, but for handling you awarded the most points. Actually, I think this is the most points of any bike we've had in the test, at 35 points. So it handles really well. Yes, yeah,
this is the most exciting category to talk about with this bike, just because it's way more comfortable than any gravel bike I've ridden. This was, I feel like, if you had slicks on there, if you added a super high PSI, you still get some amount of comfort just from the suspension in it. And then again, with the dropper, it's just so fun around corners and going down descents.
Well, I think, like, one of the things, like where we're at here in Carrizo Plain, like, a lot of the roads are big and straight, so you get some sweeping corners, but I feel like this bike would start to come alive if you were on kind of like light duty XC or mountain bike terrain, right? Like,
totally.
You've got, aside from the curly Q drop handlebar, like, it's kind of a mountain bike, right?
It sure is, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's nice. Like, since Giant does already have the full-on race bike, widening the variety of ride style, like, I think that's really great. So handling, 35 points, that's pretty high praise.
Pretty solid.
Obviously, this bike is going to score well on comfort, as it is suspended front and rear. You gave this 25 points for comfort. How was it? Like, washboard roads. There are also some big baby heads out there, big rocks that are like buried into the roads. How does it go over all that terrain?
Yeah, it went over quite well. I think if you are on washboards for a long amount of time, you're still going to get some of this, but it was funny to be next to people, and some people were dropping chains, some people were yelling and making noises about the discomfort. This handled quite a bit better. Yeah, I think if I was advising a friend that was moving from road and nervous about being on dirt or in gravel, I think this would be an awesome bike, because it basically takes that road experience and kind of puts you somewhere in the middle where you're out on beautiful dirt roads, but you don't have as much of the, like, oh my gosh, is this the right bike for this thing?
Yeah, that's cool. So versatility got a little lower score than some of the other categories. I think that's totally fair. When you talk about this bike, it really comes out as a playful bike that is supposed to be fun. And with versatility, I think, a lot of times we think about bikes that can do a lot of things well. And they built this bike to be playful. That's the point, right? Not to be a bike packing bike and not to be, your do everything road bike. So for versatility, I think you were talking a little bit about how this might be a good transitional bike.
Yeah, totally. When I think about versatility, I think about different types of rides that you could do, and maybe slightly tweak your setup to optimize that ride. This bike is really good at a few things, which is being comfortable, adding a little bit of suspension, the dropper allowing you to go around corners a little bit quicker, So yeah, I think it would be an awesome bike for a mountain biker that's looking to get into gravel and wants a little bit of suspension and the dropper, and then someone on road that potentially wants a little bit more comfort and security on the dirt.
Yeah.
Either way, it's a great point to meet in the middle.
Totally. All right, so last category, and this scored a 10 for value. Why the 10?
Yeah, I think the frame it's complex. It's got suspension in the front and in the back. It's got a dropper. So of course, starting price point is going to be a bit higher.
Yeah, I think, that's one thing too. It's a new bike and it takes a little bit of time for some of the technology to get down there. And I think for this bike to be so playful, the suspension is really critical to the experience. And so they've got to spec some suspension components that are going to be higher priced. And at the end of the day, if you wanted to get onto a Giant Revolt, you could still find the standard bike, the bike that you race,
Yep.
At a lower price point, just without the suspension. So 10 for value on this, I think makes a lot of sense. All right, so that is all of it. That is the Giant Revolt X. If you've got any questions about the Giant Revolt X, or if you've got questions about any of the bikes in the test, you can go ahead and hop online. We'll put the number down to the online team down below, or stop by any of our stores. Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. And we'll see you guys on the next one.